Okay, now it's being recorded, so this will go up onto Moodle and YouTube later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lausanne, for reminding me. Yeah. Are there any questions about assignment 6? I've got the model solution for assignment 6 and assignment 5 up. I'm sorry it took me a while to get to marking assignment 5, but that's marked now.
No, sir.
Okay. Generally, some of you did weaker in assignment 5. So, yeah, what was assignment 5? That was tendering. It seems like a number of people still don't quite understand how to do. No, was it tendering? No, it wasn't. It was.
Yes. Yeah, it was cost management.
It was budgeting and tracking,
so
wasn't
tendering.
it? Yeah. So there was still.
So, yeah.
Where a lot of people lost marks was on the liquidity analysis. So I think what you need to remember is that with the liquidity analysis, both of those curves, the expenditure and capital, they are cumulative, so they are always going up. They're not going up and down. They're only going up. So that's where a lot of people lost marks. With assignment 6, I was genuinely very happy. You all did very well with assignment 6, which is great because I think potentially time management might be one of the more challenging parts of project management.
I agree.
Yeah. That said, there was a chance that you could have got a good mark by working together. And I did give a lot of help to some of you with assignment 6.
Yes.
That's fine. I'm not accusing you of cheating, but make sure you understand how you got those marks, because you've got every chance of getting those questions again in the final exam.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my feedback with assignments 5 and 6. Cardo, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Not long now, Cardo.
Thank you.
It's been a long journey for you, but very soon you could be graduating. That's pretty cool.
Hopefully, sir.
Yeah. So, guys, I'm going to just launch into the share screen now. And this will actually bring us up to the review. Please let me know if my internet isn't as good or there's a problem with the internet. Yeah. Okay. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Are you going to upload this lecture on
Yes, sir.
Moodle?
Yep, so this is already uploaded on Moodle, just so you know. So basically, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a heads up about what to expect with the exam. It's going to be a little bit different being online, and it's only 20%. And also, we're going to then do just a quick review of what you need to study. And then finally,
So
I've got 3 or 4 questions, just practice questions similar to what you'll get in the exam. Okay?
So it's going to be multiple choice.
Yeah, I'll get to that now. So yeah, with the assessment, you've received 80% of your final course mark. That's come from your best 5 assignments. So I've emailed you. So there were 6 assignments, and I have not counted your worst performing assignment. So for most of you, that's pushed your average up by 10% or so. And 20% will be coming from this online exam. Now, guys, some of you may be working it out and you're thinking, I've already passed this course. I might not even bother with the online exam. I just want to warn you, this is not the current standard, but they have shifted the goalposts so many times with us. There is always the possibility they will say that you need to get at least 50% in this online exam to pass the module. So if you got 70 out of 80% in the final assignment, and then you get 40% in the final exam, potentially they could be failing you. That's if they shift the module descriptor on us again. But usually, with most tertiary education standards, there is a minimum you need to get 50% in the final exam. So I don't want to scare you. That's not the current rule, but there have been times where that has been insisted for modules. So yeah, particularly for you, Ivan and Cardo, both of you have done very well in the assignments. Potentially there might be a thought that you're thinking, I don't need to try very hard for this final exam, and maybe I won't even bother doing it. Don't do that. Treat this exam as you would any other. I want to encourage you to both do that. Is that clear? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this exam, it will be an online exam. It will be 1 hour. And it will be, you need to do it. You will not have a choice of times to do it. It will start at exactly 9 a.m. on Monday morning on the 29th of June. So in about 6 days' time.
Sir,
Yep.
we actually received an email, and in the timetable, the exam starts at 11.
Gosh. I will double check that and let you know by email. No one's told me that, but I'm just so sick of this university communicating one thing to students and one thing to faculty members. Yeah, that's not your fault,
all
Loza.
Exams start at 11 to 12.
11, okay. I'm going to verify that and then confirm that with you in an email. But yeah, hold that. It could be 9 a.m. It could be 11 a.m. It does sound a little bit more sensible to have it at 11 a.m. Just because a lot of people will be too sleepy at 9. But look, this exam will be completely open. Whether it starts at 9 a.m. or 11 a.m., remember it starts on the dot. So do not log on at 5 minutes past. Be ready 5 minutes before, okay? Because you will not get any other time outside of that 1 hour. The exam will be completely open book. You can use the Google, you can use the internet, you can use the lecture slides, you can use your own notes. Everything is open, the textbook. However, you only have 1 hour and you have 25 questions. So you really can't spend much more than 2 minutes on each question. So you don't have a lot of time to go and review and to read your notes. So it's really more of a quiz than an exam. So the open book, I don't know how much that's going to help you. Now, the questions, they will be multi-choice. You will be given 25 questions. And these questions will be completely randomly selected from a pool of 50 questions. So that means the 25 questions that Ivan answers will not necessarily be the same 25 questions that Lausanne answers. There won't be, and so on and so on. Also, they will be shuffled. So even if you do get some of the same questions, they will be in a different order. and there will be the answers, because they're in multi-choice order, A, B, C, or D. They will be randomized as well. So, so you need to keep that in mind as well.
Sir, can we,
Yeah.
if we answer a question, can we go back to the question, or it is?
Okay. No. Very good question, Ivan. You so it's very much like a quiz you would do on Facebook. You will not be able to go back to a question. So keep that in mind as well. That definitely makes the exam harder. I will grant you that. So this is basic. If you're 50-50 on a question, you've got to answer it and then go to the next question. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Is that clear, Lausanne, Cardo? You do not get to go
Yes,
back
sir.
to
Yes, sir.
questions. So that's a challenge. That definitely is going to make the exam harder, just so you know. Now, with a group of questions which will be coming out of a pool, the greatest accusation is that, well, what happens if Cardo gets easier questions than I get? We're basically ranking these questions in terms of easy, medium, or hard. You will be given, so there will be, the questions are being put into 3 different pools. You will get 5 easy questions, 10 medium level questions, and 10 harder questions. It's all multi-choice. So just keep that in mind. Usually with a multi-choice question, there will be 4 answers. 1 answer will be the right answer. One or 2 answers will sound correct, and then 1 will be completely off. So just be careful with that. I'm trying
Sir,
to.
are the answers tricky?
Are the answers what?
Tricky?
Freaky. What do
No,
you mean?
I mean trick.
Tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to do. One thing that I'm not going to do, Ivan, is give you a question where there's actually 2 right answers and one of them might be more right than the other. That's not what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Also, another thing I'm going to try and do is try and keep the questions short and not too wordy. Because if you've got a big paragraph you've got to read, and then you've got 4 paragraph answers to read, then it's very hard to do that in 2 minutes, especially if English is your second language. And I don't want to test you on how fast you can read. So keep that in mind. Yeah. Now, this is something you need to be aware of, though. You only have 1 chance to do the exam. It's at either 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. I will confirm that with you in email. But if you have any problem at any stage during the exam, phone me. That's my number there. It's going on YouTube now. Phone me, and you need to tell me, sir, I can't log on. Sir, my computer is frozen. Sir, my internet has just cut out. You've got to tell me during the exam. Also, if there is any question that is just so unclear, you can call me and I can clarify the question. If you don't understand the question, I can clarify it to you, but I can't tell you the answer and I can't teach you at this stage. And keep in mind, if you do that, you will be losing time and you only have 1 hour. Is that understood? Okay, guys, what happens if it doesn't work, if you can't log on, if your internet cuts out, if if the power goes out, whatever, there will be a resit exam on the same day in the afternoon. I'm not sure what the time is. I think it's at 2 p.m. I think. I will double check that time. But if you need to do the resit exam, you will have an opportunity to do that in the same afternoon. It will be completely different questions. And what I will be doing, guys, I will be making 100 questions and I will be putting them in 2 pools of 50 questions each. And I will be taking I will try and make them as even as possible, but the easier pool, I will do that in the morning. So if you want to do the resit, the questions might be marginally harder potentially. But yeah, you're not going to get an opportunity to talk with other people. I'm hoping with all of this, I'm telling you, I'm shuffling the questions. You've got limited time. You've got questions in different orders. There's no opportunity to cheat, guys. Guys, don't phone Cardo, don't phone Ivan, don't talk with one another about what you think the answer is. I can't stop you from doing that, but I want to tell you that it's not going to help you. If you don't know the answer, guess and move on. That's all you can do. You don't have enough time to research and consult with other people.
Sir,
Yep.
if we get to the point of the resit exam in case, and then usually when we do the resit exams, our marks will go to 50.
Yeah.
When we were doing classes on campus, so if we get to the resit exam, our mark will be 50.
You mean it's capped at 50%?
Yeah.
I can't actually give you a definite answer on that, Ivan. I can't remember what's been said to me, but if you've got to do a resit exam because your internet has broken out and your internet is cut out during the final exam and you've been getting 80% plus in the assignments, I think it would be pretty punitive to then cap you at 50%. That doesn't seem like something UKH would do. Yeah, I can't give a definite answer, but if that happens, I will go into back with you and say that's completely unfair, and hopefully we can bring about change. I don't think that's the policy, though, Ivan. I think this semester is quite different.
All right, sir.
But sorry, Cardo, can I just say something here? What is very important, though, if you have a problem doing the first exam in the morning, whether it's the 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. start, if you are having any trouble and you can't do the exam, you must phone me during the exam. You can't phone me later at 12:30 at lunchtime and say, sir, the exam was a disaster. I couldn't get on it. My internet cut out for 20 minutes or what have you. You will not be permitted to do the resit if you call me after the first exam. You have to call me during. I can't stress that enough. Is that understood? I will have my phone on me all through the exam, ready to answer calls. I won't be doing any other work. I'll just be sitting there with my phone, okay? Cardo, your question?
So, I said for the resit exam, you said, is it going to be in the afternoon, same day?
Same day.
Same day afternoon, okay. Okay, sure.
Yeah, so you won't have extra time to study. The other thing is, guys, as much as it is in your power, make sure you can do the first exam. I really don't. I've got to fill in paperwork and stuff if you've got to do the resits. It's a real pain in the neck for me. It's not going to give you any advantage. Do everything you can that is within your possibility to make sure your internet and your electricity is going to be functioning during the exam. Okay, so if your mum is in the house, tell your mum, you can't watch Netflix during this time. I need all of the bandwidth. I need all of the internet speed. If you've got a UPS, make sure that's connected. If you're in an area which has bad electricity, turn on the diesel generator and get that going so that it will be ongoing. Make sure you do everything you can, guys.
So another question
Yeah.
for the multiple choice that you said, is it going to be for us just clicking the right answers and that's it?
Yep.
Or we have to
Just
write down on a paper and upload it?
No, just clicking the right answers. That's all you've got to do.
Okay.
So yeah, potentially, if you're a good student and you're a fast reader, maybe this exam will take you less than 20 minutes. I did a little trial run myself, and it's kind of hard because I know the answers. I wrote the questions, but I did the entire exam in under 7 minutes. I'm a very fast reader, but yeah, I suspect for you guys, you're probably going to want to be using the greatest portion of the hour, but just keep that in mind. Yeah. How many of you have bad internet and bad electricity, and you think there is a reasonable risk that your internet is going to go out during the exam? You never know with Kurdistan, but...
that was about to say, sir. I was about to say, like, you don't know. Maybe the electricity is very good, but like during the exam will just be bad.
Okay. Guys, I mean, I am so reluctant to have you guys do the reset. If you've got a bad internet problem in your house or electricity problem, you can come to my house and do the exam. That would be completely fine. My internet problems are fixed now. I've got a UPS, I've got a fiber optics, so everything's working pretty well here. So if you would rather come to my house, you're welcome to it. Let me know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. The other thing you could do is...
Thank you, sir. That's very kind. But
Yeah.
I'm in Okra, just so you know.
What's that at Lausanne? I just missed that.
I'm in a different city, sir.
You're in a different city. Oh, where are you, Lausanne?
Sir, Okra.
Oh, Akram.
Yeah.
Where's that? Oh, Accra. Okay.
Yeah, sir, that's close to Doha.
Yeah. That I love Accra. I didn't know. Is your family from there? Oh, of course.
What?
Your name's Akrayi. Okay.
Yeah, sir.
I didn't
I'm from
realize.
there.
Yeah. Okay. Is that in the Dohuk province or the Erbil province?
In Doha, sir.
Okay. Were you able to go there? Because I thought the borders were completely
Sir,
shut.
I've been here ever since February.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, that's a little bit about the exam. So accessing the online exam, basically you need to get, I've got the wrong date there. It's the 29th, isn't it? And probably the wrong time, but it's definitely Monday. The Monday is correct. Monday morning, 9 a.m. or 11 a.m., 29th of June. You will access it by Moodle. If you scroll down past all of the the weeks and you come to week 10 and 11, there will be something called online exam, and there will be a little icon saying online quiz. It won't say exam, it will say quiz, because we're using the Moodle quiz function. And you can start that at the beginning of the time, whether it's 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. Have you all done Moodle quizzes before?
So we had a trail exam yesterday for earthquake engineering.
Okay.
Even though like it was not multiple choice, it was different, but we are familiar with that kind of.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty simple, isn't it? There's nothing too confusing about how to do this. You understand how to access the quiz. You
Yes.
know, you're familiar
Yes,
with the Moodle quiz interface. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So what the exam covers, I have to make sure that it covers everything that we've covered in class, the entire curriculum. So this includes things that we have covered in the last 2 weeks, which which we didn't have assignments for. So all of these points, initiations, planning, teams, life cycles, estimating, budgeting and tracking, tendering contracts, cost management, time management, scheduling, that's what you've covered in the assignments, and we will cover those in the exam as well. And in addition to that, everything that I've covered in the 2 lectures on quality management and risk management could be covered in the final test. So be aware of that. So has everyone seen the quality management and risk management lectures?
No, sir.
Not yet, sir.
Watch it.
Okay, so there's a lack of motivation when there isn't an assignment attached to it, it would appear.
No, sir, but we have deadlines for.
That's fine. Don't
major
worry.
assignments.
Don't worry, Ivan. Yeah, that's fine. But just be aware, guys. The reason I do these as pre-recorded lectures is so you can watch them when it's suitable for you. So I'm not upset that you haven't seen them yet. But yeah, just make sure you do watch them. Take good notes, because you might need those notes in the exam. I've tried to keep both quality management and risk management very simple, because they reduced this semester to 10 weeks and then 9 weeks. They're very truncated, and it's really a very much surface level introduction to QA, quality management and risk management. We could do an entire module on risk management if you really wanted to, but yeah, we don't have time for that. Lausanne?
Sir, will the assignment help us, like the assignment questions? Are they gonna be helpful for the exam?
I think the assignments will help you with knowing where you are weakest and focusing your study on those sections of the module. But knowing the answers to questions in the assignments is not necessarily going to help you in the exam, because I'm going to be asking different questions. I will say that generally, I try to make my exams a little bit easier than, I try to make my exams a little bit easier than the assignments, just because you only have 1 hour, you don't have time to think about your answer. So I do try to keep them generally a little bit easier. But there does seem to be a tendency with my multiple choice sections of exams that sometimes students do weaker in the multiple choice sections than the other sections. And I think that's basically because students aren't very good at, yeah. I mean, I had an exam last year where it had 25% of the exam was a multi-choice section. I had one student who got 80% in the rest of the exam, but she got 7 out of 20 multi-choice questions in the first section. I mean, I can't quite fathom that. I mean, 7 out of 20, if that's nearly, that's only fractionally better than what you would get if you guessed all the answers. So, yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it's because students are not careful at reading the questions. So remember, there will be a question, and then there will be 4 answers to choose from, and they will be shuffled, and the answers will be one answer will be the correct answer, one answer will be close to being correct but not quite, and then 2 will be completely wrong. And so I think what often happens, people read the close to being correct one and they click that without reading all of the answers and realizing, well, actually there's a far better answer available if I just read that. I think that might be one reason why people keep getting low marks in multi-choice. So that's a little hint too. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is just give you a very quick review of everything we've covered in the curriculum, and I'm not going to go into depth. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you key words that you need to read into if you don't understand them. So, how to study. You don't have a lot of time to study. It's on Monday, this exam. So that's why I always encourage students to study throughout the semester rather than to cram right at the end. But I recommend you go through lecture slides and you read the notes. I mean, if you go through it this weekend, it shouldn't take you more than 3-4 hours to flick through all of the lecture slides. I don't think it'll take longer than that. And just read your notes that you've already written and write more detailed notes on the things which are maybe a little bit more unclear for you. Identify the areas that you are weakest in, and I think the assignments can help you with that, and focus on those areas. But learn what you did wrong in the assignments. I give you the model solutions for the assignments for a good reason. So you can look at your answers and the answers of the model solution and see what you got wrong. So I don't know how many of you do that, but when I was a bachelor's student, as soon as I got my mark for the assignment, that was it. I wasn't thinking about the assignments anymore. But try to go back to the assignments and look at what you did wrong. Keep in mind, the questions you receive, they should be a little bit easier than the assignment questions. So the first thing we did was a little bit of an introduction to project management. So one of the key things we talked about was the project management triad. What's the project management triad? By the way, I read somewhere, I did a professional course. Yeah, it's cost, quality, and time. Those 3 constraints, they all influence the project scope. So that's the project management triad. If you try to cut the costs too much, it's going to affect time and quality. So you need to find the right balance. I did a professional development course on teaching, and they said when you're doing reviews, it's easier for students to remember things and to study if all of the things they need to study are not in bullet points in a list, but they're in a random cloud around key phrases, because that's how we picture things in our mind, apparently, and it helps if you use multiple colors. I have no idea if that's actually helpful or not. It could just be hippy-dippy nonsense, but that's the way I've tried to arrange this review. Hope maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. We also talked about project life cycles, and that's very much tied with project phases. So remember, we talked about the key phases of a project, normally being the initiation, the planning, or the definition, sorry, the planning, the execution, and then the delivery. Those were sort of the 4 key phases. Life cycles, you could break those phases down into much smaller sections. So you could have feasibility study, cost estimating, concept design, detailed design, review, so on and so on. We also talked about what were the key differences between project and production management. We also talked about why most civil engineering projects are public works, not private works. And then we also talked about the role of a project manager. Basically, that's keeping good communication, making sure everyone on the project team understands how his role or her role fits within the project management goal of the cost, time, and constraints. They're all working towards the same scope. Any questions on that?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
So maybe as I go through these, maybe some of these little clouds, some of these words might be confusing you, raising an eyebrow. Those are the areas you should probably go back and study and read. So we then talked about the project initiation, which is all about how do you go about defining a project. And one of the very important things to do with that is stakeholder engagement, because engaging the stakeholders, particularly with public works, you're basically being able to identify what are all of the external costs and external benefits, and then you can draw up the scope of works to maximize the benefit of the project. So that comes about with the feasibility study. And the key part of a feasibility study, this is basically determining whether a project should go ahead or not, is a cost benefit analysis, where basically you're trying to see if all of the benefits outweigh all of the costs. So in order to do that, you need to quantify all of the externals. Very hard thing to do, but we can use different methods to quantify and put dollar values on externals. We talked about willingness to pay or cost to repair and things like that. And then there's various methods we can use in the CBA, the cost benefit analysis. So one of those things could be the net present value. Another one could be the rate of return. These two, I think we looked at maybe 3 or 4 different methods from memory. So just be aware of those methods. I'm not going to make you do any really hard calculations though, just so you know, but you should have your calculator ready. Economies of scale, what do I mean by that? So economies of scale, this is basically where a lot of costs are fixed depending, regardless of how big a piece of infrastructure is. So that means the bigger you build a piece of infrastructure, the cheaper the overall cost is going to be. So it's much cheaper to build a 2-lane road than to build 2 single 1-lane roads. It's cheaper to build 1 hotel that has 400 rooms than to build 4 hotels that have 100 rooms each, and so on and so on. Can you understand that? Because there's fixed costs that do not vary depending on how big a piece of infrastructure is. And part of that is actually labor costs. The project manager building a 400-room apartment, a 400-room hotel, will not be earning more than a project manager building a 100-room hotel, for example. So that's economies of scale. Also, time in planning. Where is most time spent in a civil engineering project? Is it in planning? Is it in execution? Or is it in delivery?
So can you say it again, because my internet went?
No problem. So in a civil engineering project, where is most of the time spent? Is it in planning? Is it in execution, designing and building the project? Or is it in delivery, handing it over to the client?
In planning.
Yeah, very good. Why is that?
Because there's a lot to do in the planning, sir, before the construction. Because if there's no good, if the planning is not good, then the construction will not go well, and there might be problem.
Yeah,
But,
normally it leads to a lot of scope creep, doesn't
Yes,
it?
correct.
Because you haven't actually defined what is the best way to do the project infrastructure. Also, future generations. I've got a little floater there for future generations. The main reason stakeholder engagement takes so long is because there are just so many, planning takes so long is because you've got to engage with all of the stakeholders in order to work out what is the best scope for the project. One such stakeholder, which is a real pain to engage with this stakeholder, is future generations.
Future generation, yeah.
Why is that?
Because you cannot talk to them. You cannot. They cannot have someone that represents them. Or
because you should have a future knowledge, sir.
Yeah.
What's gonna be the data of the future? Like for example, it's about roads and stuff. You should have the population
estimations.
Yeah. So if I'm building a motorway in Erbil, one such stakeholder will be Cardo's future grandchildren, because they're going to be using the road most likely. Can I interview his future grandchildren? No, I can't. But basically, one of the key things to do with engaging future generations is to look at demographics, see how fast a city is growing, seeing where people are moving to a city, and what sort of So you look at population growth. That's a very important thing to do with project initiations, because I think I gave you the example of the Auckland Harbour Bridge in New Zealand, how almost on day one, they realised it just wasn't big enough because the city was growing so fast. And that's a big thing for Erbil, actually, because Erbil is a very fast growing city. It's actually one of the fastest growing cities in the world by some measures. Any other questions on that?
No, thank you, sir.
Okay.
No, thank you, sir.
Okay, so let's keep moving. Project teams. So what's a work breakdown structure? Well, that's basically breaking down the work of a project into key packages called work packages. And in each work package, you're going to have lots of different elements. You're probably going to have a code so you can track the package. You're probably going to have a budget for that work package to be completed, maybe a schedule for when it needs to be done. And also potentially you'll have the person responsible for carrying out that work package. So a work breakdown structure is done before hiring the people for a project team, because it helps you identify what sort of people you need. And then you need to actually structure a team into a certain hierarchy. And so we looked at a few different structures. We looked at functional team structures, projectized team structures, and then I think we looked at 3 different matrix team structures that which are sort of halfway between projectized and functional. And we talked about the benefits and disadvantages of all of those different structures. What do I mean by big picture versus pigeonhole? Well, that's a phrase we use in English, but potentially, particularly if you're in a functional team structure where all you're looking at, you're reporting to someone who works in your discipline. So if all you're ever doing is you're not working with people focused on your discipline and work packages which are all the same, you can lose focus of the entire project scope, the big picture, and you can maybe make your packages very high quality, more quality than is actually demanded, and do it at very high cost and take a lot of time. And that actually affects the big picture of the project. But
like
you got pigeonholed.
One you had, right? And as an example.
Yeah, Ivan, it really upsets me that you keep bringing this up. This example I gave in class of where I really screwed up in my career, and that just seems to be the only thing you remember from my project management module.
Sir, that's good, sir. So your mistake made me not to do a mistake.
Yeah, but that wasn't it. So what Ivan is referring to, guys, if you don't remember, I made a mistake when I was working as a civil engineer. This was when I was probably 24, 25. And I made a mistake which actually cost my company several $1 million. But the reason was that I was working on a project that had lots of different elements to it: civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, but I was only focused on the civil engineering aspect, and I did something in a civil engineering work package which actually had a big effect on the project as a whole, and it basically ended up costing a lot of money to fix. So that was a big mistake on my part. So yeah, but I was pigeonholed. I was only focusing on my one little work package, and I wasn't thinking about how that fitted in with the rest of the project. And so I kind of drifted off the scope of the project, if that makes sense. So then we turned to contracts. And usually within project teams, you will have people from different organizations, different companies working on one project. And so usually contracts come into it. And so we talked about different kinds of contracts. So you need to know all of these different contracts: the cost plus contracts, the turnkey, profit share, fixed price, design build. You need to understand the basic key elements of each of these contracts, and you need to understand about how they share risk. So, for example, if I have a choice of hiring someone to do a work package, and I can have them either on a cost plus fee type contract or a cost plus percentage contract. Now, I don't have a lot of time to supervise the person who's doing this contract, who's doing this work, sorry, the contractor. But I'm really worried about the cost going too high. What kind of contract should I use? A cost plus fee or a cost plus percentage?
A cost plus fee, sir.
Why?
Because you cannot supervise. So maybe the one that's doing the job, I mean the bidder, maybe he will make the cost of the project very large, so that his percentage will be much more, and he will maximize his profit.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, he has no incentive to keep costs down. In fact, he has an incentive to raise the costs up. A cost plus fee type, a cost plus fee type contract, though, he doesn't have any incentive to keep the costs low or raise them up. What could I do to actually create an incentive to get him to bring the costs down? What kind of contracts could I use?
Cost plus incentive, sir.
What else? So if a cost plus incentive, sorry, let's go with cost plus incentive for now. What would the incentive be, Ivan, that I would be offering?
Sir, for example, if you say, I will pay you an extra of, let's say, $1,000 or $5,000 if you can keep the total cost down to $10,000.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
Is for a cost risk.
Yeah.
And there is also for time risk and the quality risk.
Yeah.
Also.
It's usually used for time. This is the big one they use it for.
Because the others are a little bit harder and to.
Yeah, but time is a big one because if you remember when we looked at time management, the opportunity cost of time is absolutely huge. And so that's where the real cost is if there's delays to a project. And so
basically you say, I will pay you for example, $1,000 for every early delivery.
Yeah. So we agree that you will pay it. I will pay you this much. You need to finish it by this date, but I'm going to pay you an extra 5% for every week you finish early. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that encourages the person to work faster.
Yes.
And generally, carrots work better than sticks. If you start saying, I'm going to charge you a penalty of 5% for every week you are late, that you start getting into legal problems with that because you need to actually then justify that your penalty is in keeping with the cost that you're incurring and other things. But it's, generally, I mean, it's the same with anything. People generally react better with carrots than they do with sticks. So when Nora Joy is older, I'm going to, it will probably be more effective for me to say, Nora, if you finish your homework, I will take you out for ice cream. That will work better than me saying, Nora, do your homework, otherwise I'm going to beat you. That's just human nature. Humans respond better to rewards than they do to threats. So it's carrots.
Cost plus incentives is better than the cost minus the penalties, right? So this.
Yeah, generally, cost plus incentive works better than cost minus disincentive. Generally. What's another type of contract that I could use which will encourage the contractor to keep costs down?
I don't have any other idea because I have
What's by far the most common kind of contract?
the our lump sum.
Yeah, lump sum or fixed price.
Yes.
Yeah, so the contractor says, okay, I will build this dam for $100,000. He's going to be paid $100,000, whether, regardless. He's taken on entirely all of the cost risk himself. The buyer knows, even if the costs go overrun, I'm still only paying $100,000. So that's why, and basically when they tender out that, they're competing for the lowest price. That's one of the key things they look at in the tender evaluation. So,
Sir, I have a question.
Go for it, Ivan.
Sir, in the exam, what are the words that you will be using as a contractor and the sponsor, or the buyer and the...
What words would you like me to use? What's least confusing for you? Would it be easy if I just say buyer and seller?
I think the bidder and the sponsor, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not going to use those words because, bidder that's at a tender stage. It's not when the contract has been awarded.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay then.
I could
contractor and sponsor is good.
Sponsor and contractor?
Yes.
Okay. You understand those terms, Lausanne, too?
Yes, sir. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Yeah. What I may do is I may use a story. So Ivan wants to hire Lausanne to build her house, and basically give names like that. And so that might make it a little bit clearer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's much clearer.
It is really confusing. I will say that the terms that we use in industry is usually engineer for the buyer and contractor for the seller, because in reality both parties might be engineers in terms of their qualification, and both parties might be contractors. They might be hired on contracts in other directions. So I do find those terms are confusing. I will admit that. So I'll do everything I can to take that confusion out.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So cost estimating, we looked at a few different systems for estimating. We looked at first off, we looked at estimating cycles, didn't we? Basically, estimating, you will do several estimates through the life cycle of a project. And the estimates will continuously be getting more accurate, but they will also be becoming more arduous, and more energy and time and expense will be put into producing an estimate. But the reason for that is because the scope definition is still being defined. As the scope gets more defined, you can get a more accurate estimate. But you need the early estimates in order to define the scope, because you could be saying, oh, that's too expensive. Actually, we need to lower the quality to bring the costs down or something. So that's why estimating is a process rather than an event. So we talked a little bit about different estimating cycles. So different estimating techniques. So we looked at cost capacity curves. We looked at total installed costs, total installed cost factors. So neither of those are really practiced in Kurdistan, but there's a lot of room for that to be practiced. And there's probably a good amount of area for research if anyone ever wants to do a master's in that area. And we looked at the most common kind of estimate in Kurdistan, which is also has the potential to be the most accurate, and that is an itemized estimate. And we talked about different elements there, but one of the key reasons for inaccuracy with an itemized estimate is people missing line items that needed to be counted.
Items, yes.
That's the key reason.
That's
so
for very big projects. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I think I gave you an example of a project I was involved in, and the itemized estimate. This was for a motorway project that had 14 roads being built. It was about 5 kilometers of motorway, and it was $120 million we were spending. And I think there were several thousand line items in the itemized estimate. So there's a lot of room for error when you're making something that large. And we also talked about risk and contingency, and making sure you have that covered in your estimates as well. So you could get some questions along those lines. We then went into tendering, and basically we talked about the tendering process. We talked about what sort of cycle would the tendering go through. We also talked about what would be included in a tender document, so the specifications, defects liability, liquidated damages, tender fees, security deposits, earnest money deposits. These will all be included in your tender documents. And then we also talked a little bit about how a tender evaluation is done, and how that can be done in such a way to eliminate or at least reduce the risk of corruption. And this is something that there's room for improvement on in Kurdistan. There's a lot of room for improvement in Kurdistan when it comes to project management.
Too much room. Sir.
Yeah. But that's why I'm here. That's why I'm educating you. I'm hoping that you guys will be agents of change in the industry here in Erbil. I really think you can do that. I think people are very open to change, but they just need a bit of direction. And having a pre-approval criteria, we talked about that. I think most of you got the right answer on that in assignment 5. Open and closed tenders, we talked about that too, about whether you advertise the tender documents to anyone and everyone who wants to apply, or whether you select a few key people who you know are able to do the work. The truth is, for a big motorway project in Erbil, if you are insistent that it's a local company and you're not going overseas, well, there's probably only 3, 4, 5 companies that are able to do a very large motorway project, quite possibly. We then went into cost management. So this is basically just budgeting and tracking. So we talked about liquidity tests. Guys, there were a lot of lost marks in the assignment on the liquidity test when I asked you to work out whether I could afford Ficardo to build my sailboat or not. And then there was also, we remember, what is the difference between a cumulative budgeted cost and a cumulative actual cost? A budgeted cost is basically cash accounting, whereas actual cost is accrual accounting. So let's say I've got 3 of you, Lausanne, Ivan, Cardo. You're all working on the project team, and you're all getting paid $5,000 each every month, and you get paid at the end of the month. That means that at the end of each month, I've got to pay $15,000 to you in salaries. Now, what is that going to look like on my curve? It's going to look like this. It's going to look like it's jumping up. Every at the end of each month, $15,000. End of another month, it goes up another 15,000. End of another month, it goes up. And so it goes up in steps. Now, that's budgeted costs. And remember, it's cumulative, so it's always going up, the expenditure line. Actual cost is actually where the cost is accrued. So even though I am paying Avan $5,000 at the end of every month, in the middle of the month, I have accrued $2,500 of expenditure because I have used half of the month of Avan already. So I owe Avan $2,500, even if I'm not going to pay her until the end of the month. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so basically, rather than cumulative budgeted cost, it's often quite jumpy, particularly at the end of every month, you're having to pay money, or at the end of a phase, it might jump up. But a cumulative actual cost will be a much smoother line. And that's a much better expenditure line to track if you're going over budget or under budget. We also talked a little bit about making budgets, and this is tied with estimating, about doing a top-down or bottom-up budget for different work packages. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Sir, what did you say?
If I was going to make a budget for a work package, I have a choice of doing a top-down or a bottom-up budget. Do you know what?
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Yeah. So the best thing to do, guys, is actually look at. There's a lecture slide on cost management there, where I talk about this for maybe 5 minutes, and I think I hope I explain it pretty well. But yeah, let's say we're building a high rise. Let's say we're building the Star Apartments, for example, and one of the work packages is installing the glass balconies. Now, one of the costs is actually the crane. I've got to use a crane to get the glass balconies up onto the apartment, onto the high rise. Now, a top-down approach would say, this is the cost of the crane to have it on site. That work package is going to use the crane for 5% of the crane's usage on the project. So the cost of the crane, we will put 5% of that into the budget for this work package. That's one way, that's called a top-down. A bottom-up is where you're not looking at the other work packages and you're thinking, well, what's it going to cost us to bring a crane to site? And so you're going to include the cost of mobilizing a crane, getting it on site, installing the balustrades, the balconies, and then demobilizing the crane and taking it off site. You're going to be putting all of that cost into that work package. The danger of that is you're actually going to double up, because that crane is actually needed for other work packages too. And if all of the work packages are pricing the mobilizing, the establishment of the crane, and then you're doubling up. And the risk of a top-down is the opposite, is that you are going to undercut the cost of the mobilizing of the crane, because potentially if I'm pricing my work package, I'm going to think, well, the cost of using a crane is $100 an hour. I'm going to use the crane for 6 hours, so it's $600. And no one in their work package is going to price the $1,000 to actually mobilize the crane and bring it onto site. So a top-down approach tends to undercut a budget, or underestimate an estimate, and a bottom-up tends to overestimate a budget, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
so that's kind of connected with estimating, actually. It probably should have been included in the estimating lecture, but we didn't have a lot of time in that estimating lecture, so I put it in the end with budgeting and tracking. So those are really the three things you really need to know with budgeting and tracking. So with time management, I'm really quite happy about this, how well you've done with this, guys. So the critical path method, Gantt charts, total and free slack. I think you all have a pretty good understanding of these, I'm hoping.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am still a little bit concerned and sometimes confusing the total slack and the free slack, but yeah, I'm doing good with this.
Yeah. So remember, total slack is how if you can delay that activity without delaying the entire project and delaying the delivery of the project further back. Free slack is how much you can delay an activity without delaying any other activities that come after it. So free slack is usually a proportion. It's always a proportion of total slack. So if there's 0 total slack, there will be 0 free slack. If there's 9 days of total slack, you know the free slack must be 9 days or less.
Sir, will we have any questions like the last question on the Gantt chart?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, okay.
So when you got the
not
right
sure.
answers for that last question, it was more me than you. Is that what you're saying, Ivan? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah, try and focus on that. It's Gantt charts are pretty simple. I'm not sure why this is, guys, but it seems for whatever reason, Gantt charts don't seem to be as clear to you as critical path method. And I don't know why that is, because Gantt charts are a lot more visually obvious. So you can see the duration by the length of the bar. You can see what are the successes and prerequisites by the bars joining up with one another and with arrows. And you can also see total slack by if those activities aren't joining up to the final activity. And boy, everyone seems to be having a lot of internet problems. I really hope this isn't a sign of the final exam. And the free slack, you see a long...
Sorry, I lost connection.
No worries. Yeah. If you can improve your internet before the final exam, please do. Even if you have to go and sit in Donut World or something for the exam, I'd really recommend you do that. I'll even buy you a donut.
Yeah, so I'll do that. I'll try to do that.
Yeah, just a suggestion. I think the internet's pretty good there. Work on the Gantt charts, guys. Also know the advantages, disadvantages of both. Time management problems. We talked about a few of the ones that we face, particularly in Kurdistan. Time management is done appallingly badly in Kurdistan. A lot of it has to do with financing, so it's related to cost management. The problem of resourcing, what do I mean by that? Well, by that I mean that Cardo might be thinking, hey, I have 6 days of total slack on my activity, so I can take it easy. But the trouble is, the activities that come after it, even though they are not critical, potentially some of the people who are resourced to work in that activity, they are also meant to be working on other activities on the same day, on days that come after, that are critical paths. So if Cardo delays his project, even though it doesn't show up on the critical path method, he could potentially be putting people out who would affect the critical path. So this is the big issue with the critical path method, is it can't be used for showing resources. It's only showing activities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So with a Gantt chart, especially if you've got good software like ProjPlan or Microsoft Project, you can have one Gantt chart for tasks and another Gantt chart for people or resources. And that can and that Gantt chart is basically your time schedule. It's telling you what you should be working on which days. Yeah.
Ricardo, goed mute.
Yeah, Cardo. Yeah, can you put yourself on silent, man? Or just make sure you're in a quiet room. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to ask you a question about this. Cardo. Okay, I'm going to just put him on mute. I'll just see if I can. Okay, I can mute him.
He's in village. That's why.
Yeah, he's in a village. I can hear sheep and goats in the background. It's hilarious.
Yeah. It's in village. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he must be out in the field tending to his sheep or something with a laptop. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to ask a question about this because I think it's dying of death, but activity on Node versus activity on Arrow. So an activity on Arrow, which none of you submitted your critical path for question 1 as an activity on Arrow. So that tells me you're probably a little bit more comfortable with activity on Node, which is fine. Yeah, the nodes with activity on Arrow are milestones. They're not activities. Activity on Node, the arrows are milestones. The milestone meaning you've completed one activity, you're moving on to the next. And yeah, just the one thing which is a little bit cumbersome with activity on Arrow is you've got to have these dummy lines where basically one milestone must be completed before another milestone can begin, but there's no activity between them. And so you have these dummy activities or dotted lines connecting them, which is a little bit confusing. What's a white elephant? What do I mean by a white elephant?
Wait, sir, I want to remember. So we said we have it a lot in Kurdistan.
Yeah, yeah. Although I want to be fair to the KRG. I felt a bit bad afterwards with that third lecture because I felt like I was probably, it came across like I was bashing Kurdistan and making you feel bad. That wasn't my intention. And in this regard, Kurdistan has improved with white elephants. I don't think they happen as much as they once did. It's a real big problem in the Gulf, actually, white elephants, really big. But a white elephant is basically something that nobody asked for, but you got anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But they get
Yeah. So in Malaysia and Thailand, the kings back in the day, if a general fought well in a war or whatever, the way a king would honor the person would be he would give him a white elephant, so an albino elephant. But it's actually of no use. You can't take it in the sun. It keeps getting sunburned. You definitely didn't ask for it. And so it's just a pointless thing. And so a lot of civil engineering infrastructure can be like that, particularly in countries like the Middle East, where they have a lot of money from oil, and they're trying to diversify the economy, and they are trying to create jobs too. So they want to spend the money on infrastructure, but they don't actually know what is good infrastructure to spend it on. And that's actually accelerated with Islamic banking as well, because you're not making money by leaving money in the bank. So you want to spend money, because basically with inflation, the money that you have from oil, that's losing its value all the time. So you want to spend it. And so, white elephants are one of the real common ones is shopping malls. So you've got one just up the road from you, Avan, the Zana Mall. When was the Zana Mall finished?
Yeah.
When was the Zana Mall finished? I think it was finished.
It's been years that I see that building.
Yeah, and it's of absolutely no use. The rents are far too high. No one's moving in. There's better shopping malls close by. There's no need for it. But basically, so you really, in a true world with a free market, the businessman who started Zana Mall, he should be crying right now because he's lost all his money on a mall. That should be the right thing.
Yeah.
But probably, I don't know if Zana Mall, this is the case, but I suspect it's true in portion. The government probably paid this man to build the mall, thinking it would stimulate the economy. And then the man built it at low cost. The difference was his profit, and then he's walked away. And he doesn't care if the mall that he owns ever has tenants or not, because he really cared about trying to make money off the government grants rather than the business. So that's a white elephant. And because he's trying to do it at low cost and he doesn't care about getting money from tenants, that means he doesn't care how long it takes to finish. So he will rather do it at low cost, long time, than reasonable cost, short amount of time. So, yeah. So white elephants, when there's government interference and so forth, and government stimulation and grant money, they tend to take a really long time to complete. But the KRG has done a good job of trying to eliminate that with the investment board, which is something I talk about too, I think, in the same lecture. So, yeah, that's time management. So risk management and quality management, I don't think you've covered, but...
no, I have.
So, yeah, quality management. These are, I won't go through this because I don't think it's going to be much help going through an overview of something you haven't already covered. But there isn't too much there. I think it's about a 1 hour lecture. One thing that I would be aware of is know what is total quality management and know what is the PDCA cycle and how that relates to production management, and then understand how good quality management in production management, those principles can then be applied in one-off projects. It's easy to improve the quality with production management. You're making coffee cups. Some of the coffee cups are cracked. You can basically improve the design or the process, and then a much larger proportion of the coffee mugs are high quality. That's easy. Project management with a one-off project, it's much harder to get right the first time, but you can apply the lessons learned from previous projects in your project. And so you're basically treating your projects like it's the latest iteration on a production line. Whether it's a bridge you're building, a road you're building, that's where the principles of quality management in production management get applied to project management. And the key ways they do that is they use standardized designs, they use building standards and guidelines, which were basically formulated from previous projects. And also you try to hire people in the project team who have experience in previous projects of a similar nature. Those are the key ways you can improve quality. So when I was on tender evaluation teams and we were looking to hire companies for projects where it was very important the project got done at high quality, experience of the personnel, that was one of the key parameters that we looked at. We also I talk about standardized versus non-standardized quality. Okay, I'll try and explain this to you. I'll try and do this actually with a pen. I'll just okay, one moment. Okay, yeah, I think I've got it. Okay, I'm holding up 3 pens for you. Okay, so this pen was very high cost and high quality. Okay. This pen on the end, it's low quality, but they intended it to be low quality. It's a cheap pen. It's meant to be at the bottom of the market, and so it's also low cost. But this pen and this pen, I don't know if you can see, but they're actually the same kind of pen. But this one is low quality as well. Low quality, yeah. The reason, because if the ball, when I bought it, I didn't realize the ball on the end was actually broken. But so we've got 2 different kinds of low quality pens here. This one is called standardized quality because it's low quality, but it was intended to be low quality in the scope. It's done on purpose. It's done on purpose. This one is non-standardized quality. It's low quality, and that was not the intention. It's but just
because of the low cost, it got to a low quality.
Yeah, well, this was a high cost pen, but it still came out low quality. That's the thing with non-standardized quality. It doesn't actually affect the cost or the time to produce it necessarily. So that's the kind of quality management we're trying to focus on. So I give an example in the lecture slide, Ivan, Cardo, of boat racing. I don't know if I told you before, but I really like sailing. That's my sport. And the truth is, okay, I'm going to use a different example here, actually. Car racing. Let's say Formula One car racing. How much does a Mercedes Formula One car cost to race for a season of Formula One racing? It probably costs around $50 million to have a campaign of racing a Formula One Mercedes car. How much does it cost to race a Jaguar Formula One Mercedes car? It's the same cost, about $50 million. But what's the better car? Mercedes. Mercedes have won the last 3 or 4 Formula One championships. Jaguar have never won a championship. They're a very middle of the road team. So it's like comparing Manchester City to Burnley. They're just different qualities. But it costs them the same amount of money to produce a car and race in the championship. So, yeah, so that's non-standardized quality. That's the kind of, so it's not they're trying to produce the highest quality and they're falling short. So it's not quality, it's not like low quality that has been prescribed in the scope. It's poor quality rather than low quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got
okay.
it. So.
I think I might be confusing myself right now, so I better stop. So I talk a little bit about that, and I also talk about the importance of specifications in quality management, and I talk about 3 different kinds of specification. Risk management, again, this is just a final lecture for this week. How do we manage risk? Basically, all risks need to be divided into 2 categories of impact and likelihood. I talk about risk assessment and basically how do you, and then once you've identified the risk, how do you manage the risk management. And there's basically 3 ways you can manage a risk. You can avoid, you can reduce, you can transfer, or you can accept the risk. And I talk about all those. I also talk about the role of insurance and also subcontracting and how they can help transfer risk, both of those. I think you really need to look at the slides though, Ivan. Cardo, are you back inside? Yes. Cardo, can you hear me? Unmute all. Okay. So, okay.
Sir?
Okay. Were you getting all of that, Cardo? You can hear me?
See, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Okay, Cardo, don't worry, this is being recorded. It'll go up onto Moodle today, okay?
Hello?
Okay, Cardo, I don't know if you can hear me, but this is being recorded, so you can watch it later if you're having internet problems. Okay, so I want to now give you a little test just to give you practice at the exam, okay? So I'm going to present you with a question, and I'm going to give you 4 questions, and I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to look at the question and answer it, and then I'm going to flick to the next question. And then you've got to figure out which option you would click. And then afterwards, we'll go back and discuss it. But I'm not going to read the question. I'm going to give you an opportunity to read it yourself. So everything's going to be quiet. And that way, it'll be most like what the exam will feel like. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up the first question here.
We'll wait for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll just wait for a minute or so.
Okay.
Do you both know what answer you would have chosen? Don't call out the answer.
Yes, I know.
Okay, sir, yes.
Okay, let's go to the next question then. We'll come back to this.
Wait, so.
Okay, let's go to question 3 now.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and final question now. You probably can't answer this one actually if you haven't done risk management. So remember, watch those lectures because you don't want to have to guess this.
Risk management structures will not change the impact.
So to be honest, I don't know this.
Yep, that's fine. If you do the final lecture, you'll know how to do this.
I'm
Okay,
sure.
sure.
It's on Moodle now, risk management. Okay, are we all done?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go back to question 1. In typical civil engineering projects, the largest amount of energy and cost is spent in which project phase? A, definition, B, planning, C, execution, or D, delivery? What did you put, Ivan?
Sir, it says energy so it's planning.
Cardo?
So I guess it's planning as well.
It's execution.
Because, well, I was
But,
confused. When it says energy is spent more in the planning, but the cost is more in the construction, which is in the execution.
Yeah,
But planning
well,
means
and no
planning.
more. So no, Ivan, more time is spent on planning.
But more time means more energy, right? That's how I.
Okay, yeah, but
it.
in the planning
Yeah.
stage, it takes a longer time. But usually, there might only be half a dozen people employed in the project team. At the execution stage, it's faster, but you've also got maybe 100 people employed in the project team. So there's a lot more, yeah. Okay, so I should probably be a bit more specific in my questions.
Yes,
But yeah, that's
please.
definite. But do you know what I mean by that? I'll try and show this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know how the curve sort of, the curve sort of runs like this.
Yeah, it goes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if that's definition over here, that's planning, and all of this is execution.
Yeah, from
And
the
so, yeah, even though the planning is quite a long time, the execution in terms of energy and cost, it goes up. Yeah, okay. Question 2. What kind of contract means the buyer is carrying
So the
all
buyer
the
means
risk
the
for
sponsor?
late delivery? Is it a cost plus percentage, cost plus fee, cost plus incentive, and D, we do not have enough information? Ivan, what did you put?
Sir, by buyer you meant the sponsor?
It could be the sponsor, yes. So I want you to build me a house, and I'm thinking I don't want to carry all of the risk for it being late. What kind of contracts could I hire you with so that I'm not, what kind of contract should I not use because I would be carrying all the risk of a late delivery? You don't have any you don't have any incentive to finish the project early.
Sir, for cost plus percentage, because as the time of the project increases, then the cost will increase, and then the sponsor will have to pay more.
Okay,
And that's not
A.
something that
Okay, Cardo, what did you put?
So cost plus percentage goes lose.
Yep.
If it's delayed delivery.
Yep, excellent. So that, yeah, you're both correct. It's A. So a cost plus fee, the seller, the contractor, Ivan in this case, she still has some incentive to finish early because she's getting a fixed payment in a fee. So if she finishes earlier, she can go and make money elsewhere. But so if her fee is $5,000, that's going to seem like a lot of money if she finishes the house in just 3 weeks. It's not going to seem like a lot of money if she finishes it in 6 months. So yeah, she's got some incentive. Well, that's obvious. She'll be paid more if she finishes early or paid less if she finishes late. D, we do not have enough information. That's rubbish. We know it's A. That kind of contract, there is no risk that is handed over to the contractor for late delivery with that kind of contract. So good. Good work, guys.
Thank you.
C. Question 3. Why is it important to engage with all stakeholders as is possible in a project feasibility study? A, it helps to determine who should sponsor the project. B, it helps decide who should be hired in the project team. C, it helps to determine all of the external costs and benefits. D, it helps to decide if the project should be public works or private works. What did you put, Ivan?
Sir, I was confused between C and D, but since D looks like the same as A, so I said C.
Okay. Cardo?
Yeah, I said C because it's kind of, you should know the scope, you should know the benefits, who's going to take benefit of them, is the stakeholder. So you should engage with the stakeholders to know what to do is the best for the, for example, for the stakeholders to benefit.
Yeah. Cardo, you both got it right. Cardo, you ran across the finish line. Ivan, you stunted and you stilted, but hey, with multi-choice, you got the right answer, so that's good. So yeah, remember with with B deciding who should be in the project team, that's the planning stage.
Yes.
Also, who should
Yes.
sponsor the project, or is it public works or private works?
It's the same as-
That's really determining if it. I mean, we know who's going to who. Usually, the person who has paid for the feasibility study is going to be the sponsor. It's usually a government entity. Most civil engineering projects are public works. But yeah, engaging with all stakeholders, that's for trying to determine all of the external costs and benefits. And because and that's the reason it's a public work, is because all of the benefits are external rather than a private work. So yeah, the answer is C. That's what would give you that mark. Question 4. What did you all put, or what did you guess?
My guess was C, but I don't know if it's right or wrong.
What did you?
Just a guess.
Yeah. What did you put, Cardo?
So I would say B
Okay.
or A. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay. So
B, sir, B.
yeah. So Ivan, you got the right answer this time. It's C. So basically, you need to watch the lecture, guys. Make sure you do that, because there will be you will receive maybe 2, 3, 4 questions on risk management, and the same for quality management. So make sure you cover that. But yeah, basically a risk is made up of 2 sections. Its cost or impact and its likelihood. So let's say I'm drinking tea. There is a risk to me that I could burn my tongue. Now, the impact of that will probably be, let's say $100. I'm going to have to go to the doctor, pay for a doctor's visit and get medicine, $100. That's the impact. The likelihood of it happening, though, is pretty small, because I drink tea all the time. I'm pretty careful. The likelihood might be 1%. So the impact is $100. Likelihood is 1%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So reducing the risk is where you do something to reduce either the impact or the likelihood. So I could, in my risk management program, I could I could drink through a straw, and that will reduce the likelihood. Or I could do something that will reduce the impact. Maybe, I don't know, I could maybe have a doctor on standby who's cheaper, and so the cost will be cheaper. That's reducing the risk. Accepting the risk is saying, yeah, I may burn myself, but I'm just going to do it anyway. And if it happens, it happens. I will have a plan B and a contingency plan to deal with that risk if it happens. But avoiding the risk is doing something to take it out. Say, I'm not going to drink hot tea, I'm going to drink iced tea. I'm changing the scope, I'm drinking iced tea, and the risk of burning myself has been completely eliminated. The impact and likelihood are both 0. So will not change the impact or likelihood of the risk. Yeah, so B, will change it. It will reduce it to 0. The answer is C. Sorry, guys, I read that wrong. C. Accepting
Sir,
the risk.
I said risk management, and then if we want to, I mean, if it is not impacting, so it's not reducing, of course. It's not avoiding it. It's accepting it.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I didn't read my own question there. The answer is C. Sorry, Cardo. Sorry, man. Reducing the risk. There's a clue in the question. You're obviously changing the risk if you're reducing it. Avoiding it, you're basically making the risk 0. but accepting it, you're not changing the impact or the likelihood. B and C, yeah, it's just C. So, yeah. One other thing, guys. So what did you get there out of those 4 questions? What did you get?
So, for example, in the first question, if you didn't write energy and cost, if you just wrote cost, I would directly go to the execution.
Okay, so
But
I will be clearer in my questions.
Yes.
I realize
Yes,
that.
please.
I'm going to do everything I can to be clear. That said, if there is anything that is unclear to you, you can phone me. You've got 1 hour. You should have time to phone me if you want a little bit of clarity, just so
But
you know.
in general, overall, it's kind of easy. Like I can
Okay.
say that.
Cool.
And overall, kind of clear.
Cardo, you've studied well in this module. So if you've studied well, you've engaged with the assignments. I don't think this will be particularly hard. This exam. That's for people who haven't engaged with the material and they've tried to do the bare minimum for the assignments. It's going to be tougher. But I'm not expecting you to struggle too much.
The nice thing about this lecture, the nice thing about this lecture, sometimes you can like think about it in a logic way and you come up with an answer.
So guys, that just will give you a taste of what the questions will be like in the exam. So you may get pictures of Gantt charts and things as well, and being told, what is the total slack for this activity or so forth.
Thank you so much, sir.
So remember that. There'll be things like that. So it might not just be words. It might be something that you've got to calculate, and there will be different amounts that you've got to choose from. So remember that as well. So that's all I've got for you. This is the end of the project management module. I want to thank you. Most of you have really engaged with this module very well. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed teaching it. I think it's a very interesting field, and I hope some of you might even consider specializing in project management in the future. Maybe you prefer this more than maybe some of the other more technical modules. I want to apologize to you too that this has only been a 9-week semester. That couldn't have been helped, but project management is a really big field. There's a lot more that I could have taught you. The small part that I did on contracts, for example, when I did my bachelor's degree, contract engineering was its own module to itself. Risk management was a module unto itself as well. Quality management and asset management, you could do your own module at postgrad in that. So there's a lot more that we could cover. This is very much a surface level module. You've got a lot more to learn in project management in time, but I hope you've enjoyed what you've learned anyway. At this stage, are there any more questions?
No, thank you so much, sir.
Okay, I have a question then for
Thank
you.
you so much, sir.
I've got a question then for you two, and also anyone else who's listening, if you want to email this. If you've got any feedback for me on how I can improve this module, or if there were parts of the module that you didn't enjoy as much or you found too difficult, parts you did enjoy, which you say keep the same. If you've got any feedback on how I can improve the module, I'm all ears. You can be completely open with me here. So, is there any feedback?
For me, no.
Okay, Caldo?
Thank you.
So for me, to be honest, I don't have anything. Like, I think it was a good online lectures because we have to consider it was online lectures, you know, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good module, like good way to teach.
Yeah.
Everything was perfect for me. I was really comfortable with it.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
yeah, I mean,
We
On-
understood it very well, even though it was an online,
Yeah.
online classes, but still we understood it very well.
Yeah. Online learning, it does take a bit of getting used to. And I will say that certain modules lend themselves better for online learning than others. And I think project management is quite good for online learning. I think I'm also teaching engineering economics, and that's been really tough online because you need to use the whiteboard a lot, and
Yeah.
online just doesn't give that ability to the same degree. In terms of level of difficulty for project management, has this been one of the more difficult modules, or medium, or too easy? Could it be made a little bit tougher, or?
It was medium for me, and the only part I was worried about was the time management.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did good in the assignment. So the only
Yeah. Well, I did
part,
well in your assignment.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only challenging part was that one.
Okay. Yeah. So part one, you found that hard?
No, part 2 and 3.
Oh, in the time management.
Especially the grant thank you, sir. It was kind of
the Gantt chart. The
brain chart.
The Gantt chart, not the
Yeah.
Gantt chant, but yeah, the Gantt chart. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I should try and teach that a little bit better. I'll think about how I can do that, because yeah, it seems like there's been a little bit of struggle with that, and there shouldn't be.
So the problem was, for example, in the Zoom meeting that we did, me, you, and Taba, I understood that because you were able to move your mouse click, so you could show us. But in the video, when you were saying the arrow, and then I was confused. Okay, which arrow is that?
Yeah, that's one of the bad things with PowerPoint videos. You can't use a cursor. So yeah, okay. I'll have a think about that, but hopefully I never have to teach this online again, and that will solve that.
Sir, the best thing for me was the examples and information about the real examples. You know what I mean? Like, it was all reality.
Real life, yeah.
So like examples of Kurdistan and things?
For example, Kurdistan, even the projects that you have been and worked there, sir.
Yeah.
Like, it was really helpful for me.
Yeah. No.
Like, it was the best part.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of where I can add value to the UKH degree. I'm not a top academic like Dr. Dara or Dr. Abbas, but I do have a bit more industry experience. I've worked in the field.
And that's really good for a teacher to have. I came to this decision because they can make the student imagine it.
Yeah. You need to have both in a faculty, don't you? You need people with industry experience. You need people with good research experience who are in the top of the field. Yeah, so I think, were there any parts of the module where you thought I rushed it, and other parts of the module that you thought I spent too long on?
No, I think it was balanced.
Yeah. Although quality management, risk management was definitely rushed at the end because I suddenly was told there were 9 weeks.
I haven't watched it, so I can't judge.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty rushed. It's definitely a very brief overview. In terms of the quantity of work, do you think it was reasonable for 9 weeks of work? Or
Yes.
could there have been more material covered, or do you think it was about right?
For a 9 week semester, it was perfect.
Okay. It wasn't. Tell me honestly, if it was too easy, just tell me.
It wasn't. I can't say it was too easy, sorry.
Okay.
Because,
Okay.
yeah.
Um,
It was a medium.
Okay, cool. Hey guys, if you think of anything that you think I could improve on, please let me know. You can criticize me, you can critique me. I'm a very new teacher. I've only been teaching for 3 years, so the best way I can improve is for you to be brutally honest and tell me, or you could have done better here, or you're not making sense here. Please let me know by email. Last year, I took you all for engineering economics, and a couple of you gave me really good feedback and good criticism, which I've taken, and I hope I've improved the economics module because of that.
Sir, I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sir, for example, if next year with the students, UG4 students, next year if there's no corona, there's no online lectures, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think it's better if you take them for a field trip on a project. You know what I mean, sir?
Yeah.
Like see the project, and then when they come back, like an assignment with that project.
Yeah.
It will be good.
Yeah.
It will be really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll think about that. I've found field trips really hard to organize in Kurdistan. It's been quite tough. I think like going to a public works project, they have lots of bureaucracy. Usually the government is quite scared of letting people come onto the project to see. I think it's a security thing. There's usually Peshmerga at the gate, and you need special permissions from the Prime Minister, it would appear, and others. And so I find it's been really tough for me. Whereas,
so you should have then.
Yeah, it's bureaucracy. It seems you need Worcester to visit a site. But yeah, I think there would be value in that. Yeah.
Don't post that video on YouTube.
Don't post this on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I'm releasing any deep secrets. I think most Kurds know there's a problem with access and things, but I can understand it to a degree. There's a lot of security concerns for the region. I'll tell you the project that I tried to do a field trip on for engineering skills. You know, they're building the new Parliament building at the moment. I tried to do a field trip of the new Parliament building, and I phoned someone up, and they laughed at me. and then I got talking, and I realised that even people on the project, they actually have their cell phones taken off them, and they get searched before they go on site and all sorts. And yeah, it's just crazy security, because potentially having an inside knowledge of the project could mean, you could be part of a terrorist cell in the future who tries to overtake it. I don't know. So yeah, that's Kurdistan. That's just something we've got to live around. But yeah, field trip. That's a good idea, Cardo. Thanks for that. Okay, guys. Well, unless there's any other questions, I will get this up on Moodle now, and I will get to writing the rest of your exam. And all the best for Monday.
Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you giving your time to us today.
Okay, cool. And also, both of you, your final year projects, how are they coming on?
So
it's going well, but I'm a little bit slow because